and I'm still a knothead. Here it is. What is it? It's a frame. It's made from barn wood. Want to see how I made it? Let's hang out in the shop. I've got the barn boards here, and I'm just trying to lay them out in a way that I think will look pretty cool. Got the one with a little red up top. Now the nice thing is these are tongue and groove. See? And I think what I might be able to do, and I'm hoping, is just cut the bottom part of this groove off for my rabbet. And that should give me about 5/8 of an inch from the back, and hopefully it'll be enough to hold the glass and the print and the mat and everything else. So we're going to give that a shot. Now that I've got everything laid out about how I want it, I'm going to just take a marking knife and score some lines, and that'll be where I'll make my cuts. And I'm using a marking knife because these boards are pretty rough and they're awful dark, so I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to see a pencil line. So we'll just make a little mix on the insides here. And I'm not really worried about squaring this because it is going to be rough sawn and I really don't have a square edge to work from. And I'll just go from there. Since I'm not working with anything really square or straight here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these together with half lap joinery. I've got the table saw set to roughly half the width of the stock, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up. I'm going to make a cut just short of my mark, and make another cut on the bandsaw, finish off the waist, and I'll do the final fitting of the joint by hand. Okay, I'm all set up here at the bandsaw. Let me show you. Got the fence set up. It's going to be just under 3/8 of an inch. The stock I'm using is about 3/4. That should give me probably just less than half of the stock, and then I can fine tune from there. So let's fire this thing up and get cutting. Alright, time to bust out some hand tools. I'm going to start with my shoulder plane here. Just take a little off at a time. Try and get it to where it's going to fit the way I want it to. If you don't have a shoulder plane, you could always go ahead and use a chisel for this. I would use the widest chisel you got. The biggest one I've got is 1 inch. And you just ride it across. Just taking off high spots to start with. Going right across the grain, just like that. And then you can come back and go with the grain. Flip it around, use the bevel as a reference if you have to. I have the shoulder plane, so I'm going to use that because it's much easier. Let's go with another test fit. Let's see if we got that flush. Yeah, not quite yet. Well, I'll keep working on it. Once I get it fit, then we'll get back to some filming. Well, now that I've got that fit where it'll be pretty flush, what I want to do, I want to scribe this in right here. Maybe you can see that pencil line, maybe you can't. I don't know, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my 1/2 inch chisel here and my mallet, and I'm just going to carve that out. And what that should give me is a nice tight fit with the wavy edge of this barnwood. Now you really want to make sure you got sharp chisels for this, because this wood's been sitting around for a while, so it's picked up some moisture. It's a soft wood to begin with. I think it's hemlock fir, if I'm not mistaken. And softwood's kind of shear end grain with a chisel. The chisel better be sharp or it's just going to crush the fibers. But this is working so far. And in addition, it's probably a little bit punky. It's been sitting on the ground probably, and it's been out in the elements, so it's a little softer than it probably ordinarily would be. But just follow along with your scribe line, and to do that, all you do is you lay your other piece on it and run your pencil along the edge to give yourself a line, and carve down to where your base for your joint is, I guess you would say, just because I can't think of another way to say it. And then you should have a good tight fit between the two. Now this is a frame, as I mentioned, so it's going to be hanging on the wall. I can see a lot of stress, so not so critical to have it a tight joint for structure, but it'll just look a whole lot better even though this is the back side. Start with the back side, because that way there, by the time I get around to the front side, I should pretty well have it down. Do a little more banging on this, and then I'll move on to the next step. Alright, now that I've got the joinery where I want it, time to make some rabbets. Now I'm going to do these on the router table. Got a straight bit chucked in the router, and it's set for about 3/8 of an inch in my case, and it's going to be a 3/4 inch depth. So we'll get this thing fired up. Well, I've got everything all glued up now, and I do have a few holes that are going to make things a little unstable, and some of the wood's starting to rot, looks a little punky. So I'm going to see if I can't stabilize that with some epoxy and fill the holes with some epoxy, and we'll get to that right about now. I'm going to get started mixing up some epoxy. It's 2 parts. Got a resin. Got a hardener, and you're going to mix it equal parts of both. I like to use these little medicine cups. They've got little measuring lines on there. I'm going to mix up quite a bit of this stuff. So I'm going to squeeze it out till I figure I've got enough. That should hopefully do it. Cap on that. That's the resin. Now I will put the hardener in. And if you're going to go light on either of these, make sure it's not the hardener, or you'll just have a sticky mess. Not going to worry about bubbles in the epoxy on this, which we will have once I mix it. You already see some bubbles in there. And now I just use a popsicle stick from the craft store to mix everything up. This will just get poured into the holes, but I got something else in mind when it comes to the rotten or funky wood. Okay, I have to move fast with this. What I've got in the cup is a little bit of acetone. I'm going to brush that onto the funky areas here. Hopefully you can see what's going on. That's my little helper in the background. What I'm hoping to do, since acetone is a thinner for epoxy, I'm hoping this will draw it into the wood a little bit. I guess we will see when I get everything together. I'm only doing this from the back side because with any luck I'll get enough adhesion that it'll soak in and stabilize everything. You say hi to everybody, Danny? We'll get Danny on camera here in a minute. He's taping everything in the shop with blue tape right now. Aren't you, bud? Are you taping everything with blue tape? No? Just the vacuum cleaner? Alright, now I'm going to pour this in. Just the vacuum cleaner stuff. Moving right along here. I'll try and keep the rabbit fairly clean. Alright, get some over here where you can't see, but I don't have time to move the camera. There. This is only 5-minute epoxy, so I've only got a few minutes to work it. Now I gotta get some over in these holes. What I did with the holes, and I'll shift the camera here in a second, once I get this all poured and smoothed out, was I put some blue tape underneath so that the the epoxy doesn't just flow right through, because that would make quite a mess just dripping out on everything. Now if you're like me and you don't have a very large workbench space to work on, I've got this set up on my table saw, and what I did, you can probably see on the shot here that I've got some wax paper down just to protect the table saw surface. Hopefully this should do the trick for me. What do you think? Is this going to do the trick, Danny?
Yeah.
Yeah? Alright. Alright, all the epoxy's in. Now we'll just let it set here and see how we make out. Well, I've got the frame all assembled, glued up and out of clamps, and now I got a couple things going on. Well, let me show you here. Okay, if you look right in here, you can see hopefully a couple things. Got a little bit of glue squeeze out right here, and because this is a cut, there's fresh wood showing that hasn't been oxidized like the rest. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this glue squeeze out. I'm just going to use a chisel to do that. Bringing it across the grain I found is the easiest thing to do. This does a pretty good job of getting it all out of there. And if it leaves a rough surface, that's okay, because it'll just match the rest. Get that little booger out of there. And you can come back if you've got any stubborn stuff that's trying to stick. Just bring the tear down on it. And now the glue's gone. Except for this little bit right here. And that'll take care of that. And I don't like leaving a bunch of whiskers where somebody could get a sliver, but just get as many of them off as I can. And once you do the next step, you're going to be sure to know whether you got all the glue off or not. Next step that we're going to do here is I'm going to actually take a solution of vinegar that I've had steel wool soaking in overnight. And I don't know how much the steel wool is oxidized. I did use apple cider vinegar in this case because we're actually all out of white vinegar. We usually have a gallon of it in the house, but for some reason when I'm looking for it, it ain't there. Not unusual. So I'm just going to take a cheap brush and we're going to dab it in the vinegar solution, and we're just going to kind of dab it in here, soak all the freshly cut wood with it. Try and do the end grain too, just so everything kind of matches up. I'm probably going to do this 2 or 3 times before all said and done, and hopefully that'll even out the color a little bit so that it'll blend with the rest. Well, that's how I put together a frame out of recycled barn siding. Now if you want to see some other projects made out of recycled wood, I've got a couple of pallet project videos, projects put together with recycled pallets if you couldn't figure that one out, and they're in the playlist, and I'll leave a link to that for you if you want to take a look at them. And I would love to have you as a subscriber, so hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, and feel free to share it with your friends, and of course, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what you say. And until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. here it is. What is it? Well, it's a picture frame made from barnwood. Want to see how it's made? Hey, let's hang out in the shop. Really?